Hello everyone, it's Ms. Redmond here. Welcome to your fourth lesson on the light topic. This one's all about the eye. It's called How Does the Eye Work? If you haven't got one already, please go and grab a pen and a piece of paper so that you can take notes and do any little tasks that I give you as we go through. Obviously feel free to pause the video at any time. Here are your success criteria, so if you want to write those down, pause the video now. Okay, this is a bit of fun. This is a blind spot demo. What you need to do is get a plain piece of paper. I don't think it works really with lined or squared paper. And make a little cross and a dot, quite small. Then you're going to close one eye and look at the mark which corresponds to the closed eye. Works better if you put your hand over your eye really. So put your hands over your left eye, and on this bit of paper you're going to look at the cross. And then you move your head slowly towards the paper, still staring at the cross, and you should notice that the dot seems to disappear. Right, it's a bit fiddly, but you can try it a bunch of times. And what you're actually doing is you're lining up that mark with the blind spot in your eye. And the reason it works is your brain is really, really clever. Normally, it fills in that information for where your blind spot is. But because it's seeing a piece of white paper, it assumes that the whole thing is white paper. So it fills it in with white. All right? So that's why that mark seems to disappear. And you can then do it with the other eye. You can close your right eye and look at the dot, and the cross will seem to disappear. Alright, so this is your eye. This is more complicated diagram than you need to know. You need to know these parts: the pupil, the cornea, the iris, the lens, the retina, and the optic nerve. We'll go into those in a bit more detail in a bit. So this is the pupil and the iris. The iris is the coloured part of your eye here, which on this photo is green. And it's actually a muscle that controls the size of the pupil. So the pupil is actually an opening into your eye, and the iris is there to control the size of that opening. So you might notice if you shine a bright light into your eye, your pupil gets very small. Or if you look at your eyes in low light levels, your pupil gets very wide. So it gets small to protect the eye from too high light levels, and it gets big in low light to try and get as much light into the eye as possible. The cornea is like a bump over the top of the iris and the pupil. So here we've got a blue iris and we've got the pupil, and the cornea is the bump over the top. If you wear contact lenses, this is where your lens sits. So that's why it doesn't go wandering off around the eye, because it's sitting on that bump of the cornea. The lens is this bit here. So this is showing you like a slice through the eye. So this is the cornea here, that bump. And then we've got the iris and the pupil. You can see there it's an opening into the eye. So that's where that light goes into the eye, and it passes through this thing, which is the lens. And it's like a blob of jelly almost. And it's attached by these things. I think they're called suspensory ligaments. And they attach to little muscles on the inside of your eye, and those muscles can contract and pull. So this is a crossover to the body systems topic, right? So they can pull that lens to make it flatter, or they can relax to make it thicker, and that allows your eye to focus the light on the correct part of the retina. So if you wear glasses, if you're like me, you're short-sighted, your muscles in your eye are too strong, so your lens is always too flat. So that's why you can wear glasses to correct that issue. This is the retina. This is the light-sensitive cells at the back of your eyes. We also call them photosensitive. So this photo part of the word is anything to do with light. So photosensitive is sensitive to light. Photograph, photographer, photosynthesis, they're all to do with light. And you can actually see here This is the part where the optic nerve joins into the retina, because you can see all of the veins and blood vessels coming out of that spot, and this is your blind spot. So there are no photosensitive cells in this spot. So that's the bit that you were lining up with the cross or the dot in that first demo. And this, you don't need to know about this spot, but it's called the fovea or the macula, and that's the densest concentration of photosensitive cells. So that is where your eye focuses the light on to let you see. So this is the part of the eye that actually senses the light because it's photosensitive. And then the optic nerve is a bundle of nerve cells which takes signals from your eye here all the way down to your brain, and you can see a bit of an expanded image here showing all the blood vessels supplying those nerve cells and supplying the rest of your eye. Alright, weird thing about the eye, it actually sees things upside down. And you can tell that from the diagram. Look, this ray from the top of the clown's hat actually hits the retina at the bottom, and the ray from the bottom of the clown hits the retina at the top. So it's flipped upside down. We also call this inverted. Your brain does a very clever thing. It takes this inverted image information and it flips it the right way up, because your brain knows through experience that the clown's hat is actually on the top of him and the feet are on the bottom. So your brain does a lot of very clever processing with the information that it receives. Okay, so that was the eye. So that's a biological way of making images. Now we're going to talk about the camera, which is like a mechanical way of making images. This picture here is actually showing what's called a camera obscura, which just means a dark box. So you can see here we've got a darkened room and it's got a very tiny hole in the front, and the light from the top of this candle goes through the hole and hits the wall at the bottom. So it hits the back wall at the bottom, and the light from the bottom of that object goes through the tiny hole and hits the back wall at the top. So just like in the eye, the image is inverted. And this is the general principle that cameras work on as well. So here we've got the two things side by side showing you that both produce an inverted image. So this is the eye with the upside down tree, and this is the camera with the upside down tree, because that's the way that the image forms. Alright, so the eye and the camera have similar parts which do similar jobs. So you can see those two things side by side there. So here's a little challenge. Which parts of the eye are similar to these parts of the camera? So we've got the lens, the aperture, the shutter and the film. What parts of the eye do you think do the same jobs as these parts of the camera? Okay, here are your answers. So the lens of the camera corresponds to the lens of the eye. They both focus the light. The pupil and the aperture do the same job. It's an opening that lets the light go through the eye or the camera. The iris and the shutter do the same job because they control the level of light that goes in. The iris does it by making the pupil bigger or smaller, and the shutter does it by opening or closing for a different length of time. And then the film or the retina do the same job because they detect the light. Although cameras nowadays don't have a film, they have electronic version. So here's those two things together showing you the corresponding parts, and we've got the extra information that you don't need to know, but it's interesting that the inside of the camera is painted black and the inside of the eye has a black layer as well. It's called the choroid. Alright, here's your summary. Lots of keywords for this lesson. Here are the eye ones. Retina is the light sensitive part at the back of the eye where the image is formed. The pupil is the hole in the front of your eye. It's the black circle. The iris is the muscle that controls the size of your pupil. It's the coloured part around the black circle. The cornea is the transparent outer part of the eye. Inverted means upside down, and that's the type of image that your eye produces. Photoreceptor is a type of nerve cell that's sensitive to light. And there are two types called rods and cones. The optic nerve is a bundle of nerve cells which takes signals from your eyes to the brain, and your brain is the organ in your nervous system which processes information and controls many functions of the body. So that's the eye. And here's the camera. So a pinhole camera is a simple type of camera which has a very small hole in the front and a screen behind. A real image is an image that you can make on a screen, like the image on your retina or on the screen of a pinhole camera. Pixels are the grid of photosensitive elements at the back of a digital camera, and a charge-coupled device is a device that uses those photosensitive elements and produces an electrical charge which is then moved off the pixels and stored. So that's how cameras, digital cameras, create their images. All right, thank you very much for listening, and I will speak to you next time. Bye bye.